Okay. How much you want to back the truck, Nancy?
Do you have to bring the voice back?
I don't know where that ended out
Can you,
first.
can you look at the recording and tell me how many minutes long it is and we can back into it?
I think Sergio should just start all over, because I can't even get back to
Not a problem.
Go ahead.
where the report.
Sure. So I'll start over. In terms of this was, there was a concern brought forth by one of our residents regarding speeding on Main Street by Natterer Park, where an investigation began in terms of trying to see if there is actually speeding going on, if there's other factors and so forth. The time frame started November 15th through November 29th, where our chief placed 2 portable electronic speed signs, both southbound and northbound by Natterer. And if you actually drive past that road, it goes from 25 on Main Street here, not too far from here, to 35 to 45. And it's, I would say it's within 100, 150 yards that actual speed limit changes. So it's fairly short. After our findings on southbound Main Street, Natterer entrance, the average speed was 40.6. The 50th percentile was 40.36, and the 85 percentile was 44 miles per hour. And I'll bring up the 85 percentile in a second because that's important to know. And northbound, it was actually lower. Main Street towards the dirt road, the average speed was 37 miles an hour, 50th percentile 36.93, and 85th percentile 40.97. The reason we bring up the 85th percentile, and I just learned about this actually over the last 24 hours, the 85 percentile speed is a speed at or below which 85% of vehicles travel under free flowing conditions. It's a key metric used by traffic engineers, which I was not aware of, to determine safe speed limits within a town. And drivers naturally adjust their speed based on visual and environmental factors, such as lane, shoulder widths, presence of curves, hills, weather, color, season, actually summer, spring, and proximity to developments and also other access points. So the key takeaway from this study, there was no significant speed issue identified after our chief relayed back his report. The 85th percentile speeds, which was 44.03 going southbound and 40.97 northbound, are consistent with typical traffic patterns in our area and within reasonable limits of the posted speed limits. While individual vehicles may exceed that, like anywhere else in our town, county, country, the majority of traffic remains within safe measures. Safety insight, the 85th percentile is seen as a natural speed that most drivers will not exceed unless prompted by other conditions such as somebody chasing them or whatever else it might be, stop signals, traffic, or trying to pass a yellow light before it turns red and so forth. And since the majority of the drivers are traveling at or below this speed, there is no evidence to suggest there's a systemic speeding problem within that area. I know our resident also brought up the fact that when he pulls out of his driveway and he's directly in front of Natterer, that he brought up seconds and his response time when he doesn't see a car and to get to that speed limit, which is 45, right around where he pulls out, he found it to be challenging and deemed it dangerous. And that's why these studies came into effect. So the next steps, essentially, what do we do and how do we address these concerns from our neighbors? So current traffic speeds do not indicate any changes that potentially could be made. They're going to continue monitoring speeds, and they're going to have speed traps there. They are aware of the concerns. They're going to talk to residents. The chief, and I will be speaking with him shortly, he believes a lot of the people who do speed in our town are not from our town. They're residents that are driving through, and also what we found, the 206 bypass has become now the Main Street bypass, where they're jumping off Main Street, or should I say 206, right when you go off 287, and they're finding kind of a cut through to come through past Natterer, through Main Street, and then jump back on 206, past Chester or Mendham. So that's something that we're also looking at. And optional enhancements, consider increased signage or public education about safe driving behaviors, although that can only be given to our residents and doesn't affect potentially the people who are speeding toward town. I think people that live in town very quickly find out that our police officers are vigilant, they're active, they're always on top of everything in terms of speeding. Even when I first moved to town, I learned that very quickly, which is our police officers do a great job here. So in conclusion, the data that was collected from November 15th to the 29th, the majority of drivers do not speed, and they're within the speeding limit, and they're within that 85% percentile, aligning with the postal limits and actually the national average and recommendations by engineers. We'll continue to monitor and help residents with any issues they have. I know there were also issues on Mendham Road. There was concerns, and I'm not sure if we placed detectors there yet. I'll have to talk to Chief. Maybe we can look at that as well. But I was super impressed how quickly and efficiently they looked at the data. If you look at this data, and I know Mayor, you looked at it, and Nancy, I'm not sure if you got that email as well. I mean, it was pages and pages, broken down by not necessarily license plate, but what the vehicle was traveling at, if it slowed down, if it saw the warning sign, if it would slow down. So that was something that I've learned as well. It was great data to back it up.
Recommendation to the council or not, or a recommendation to the council to take any action?
Not at this time. So after that study, I don't think we should, and also Chief believes we should keep it as is and not move it to the county level, if that's what you're asking.
Recommend no change.
No, recommend no change.
Let me ask this, I saw in the email that the recommendation was going to be put into places that Far Hills.
Far Hills.
Dropped.
Far Hills is
35 is being dropped to 25, right?
that is correct.
And when you lead up to the 35 in Far Hills, that's still our 45, correct?
Correct.
So there's going to be a 20-mile-per-hour reduction in speed if you're traveling the maximum speed limit from our section of the Peapack Road / Main Street to 25 in the center of Far Hills, which is a large amount to slow down. That's 50% of the speed, right?
That is correct.
Okay. Just a thought for the council. I drive that road every morning. Okay, and I like to drive fast, and I've never made 45 on that section of road. Would you think it would be a good idea, Sergio, to perhaps consider reducing the speed on the section that we've identified as 45 to instead 40? Because it does address that resident's concerns, and it does make the transition from when the 45 stops and the what's going to be 25 starts a little bit less.
Yeah, I didn't realize Far Hills was making that change. I would actually go for 35, so it's less dramatic than 10 miles per hour.
And plus, I was gonna say, honestly, the similar thing. I just think there's too many changes, right? Like, we go to 25, 35, 40, 45, now to 25.
It's a
The way it goes
It's
now is
crazy.
in our town, it's 25, then it goes to 35, then it goes to 45, then back down to 35.
Right.
In Far Hills.
So I think that top speed of 45 should be dropped to 40.
That's what I
That, right.
You're saying.
But I think most of that,
I'm saying 35.
yeah, it's tough because it's a really non-resident area for the majority of it. I mean, I go for 35, but I don't think the county's gonna go for it.
Yeah,
And Mayor, you make a great point. When this first came to our attention, we were not aware of the Far Hills change that was implemented by their council, and
I don't think it's been implemented yet.
it has been implemented. It was recommended, and it looks like it's going to go through. So we were not aware of that, and this is we're working with the information that we have currently, and based on the information that we have, that change hasn't been implemented in Far Hills. Therefore, I think we revisit this. You have a great point. That is a big change of a 20-mile-an-hour difference, and it's almost like
It's still a big chunk. I think I'd go down to 10 mile differential.
Yeah, we can go, I mean, do we know if Far Hills discussed that transit? Because some of that 45 is in, that's Far Hills, not.
So we're suggesting.
You go from 40 to 25 going into Far Hills.
What I'm hearing
People are
is
going to take it into Far Hills.
you have 25 in the center of our town, and you go up to 35 by Railroad Avenue, we'll say.
And keep it at that.
And then you're 35 all the way to the center of Far Hills when it drops to 25. Is that what I'm hearing?
that is
That's what
correct.
I would go with, yeah. I would rather not have the changes on.
I mean, I'm a fast driver too. I think it's great, but I think there is that section basically from after the kind of densely resonate, like the houses along Main Street, not in downtown Far Hills, but that second section. After that, through past Natterar, people go pretty quick. I think 35 is going to feel slow, but I'm all for going slow. Like, I just
think I'd rather have less changes in the speed limit as you go through, because,
yeah.
I mean, you know, when you would go 25, and then it would jump to 35, and then it would go to 40.
Right.
I mean,
It does that
it
now.
depends on where,
Right.
I mean, you really don't have enough time to adjust with all those changes.
Yeah.
So
I mean, there's that many
less
changes
are
now,
better.
but, so I feel like it has to be a discussion with Far Hills though, because it's,
If they're doing that, then I would go with 35.
and a lot of that 35 section is in Far Hills, not PG.
Yeah, they are dropping
Yeah.
35 miles an hour to 25 in Peapack Road in Far Hills, from 35 to 25, and in front of the fairgrounds from 40 to 35. So
Oh, so they are dropping it to 35. So then we should meet in the middle.
Yeah.
It seems crazy to have a section
Of just 40.
of 40, like a half-mile section of 40. That seems great. No.
Right.
So we should go for 35.
And that's what the email says here. This is from the assistant county engineer.
That sounds too.
Yeah.
Correct. Some uniformity, essentially. is what
Yeah,
we're saying.
they've already implemented that or suggested. I think we should.
Are we permitted to comment or no?
Not yet.
At the end of the meeting.
Thank you.
We're talking about 150, 200 yards. Would you say maybe?
It's more than that.
The 45 section?
From the 45 to Far
section is
Hills
about a mile.
Yeah, that's longer. That's
About a
long.
mile.
into Far Hills, you're saying?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The 45 section steps down to 35.
I think it's going to feel slow for a little bit, but I agree with John. I think it's crazy to have 5 speeds on a 2-mile road.
So you're suggesting 35 across the board?
Right.
Yeah.
25 in both
Not
of our
20
little town
downtown,
towns, 35
but
everything.
35, keep the 35 and 35 across.
Yep.
I haven't heard from all
I
council
don't,
members.
I don't agree.
Okay.
I think that's, a rural area, and that's, just go faster there, I just naturally do it. You just gave a report that people are abiding by the speed, and if we start putting it to all 35, I just think people are gonna be tempted, and now we're gonna have a lot of violations there.
And I will say this, and I forgot to mention this, one of the key points from the report, traffic has increased over the last decade, and now with the new hotel, the Natterar visitors, that has also increased traffic in front of these residents' homes, which is the concern that was brought forward.
It'll discourage people from rerouting.
You have that stretch where if they're going 45 miles an hour, I have been on that road where people had passed the entrance to Natterar, stopped, now they made a K-turn or backed up.
That happened 2 days ago.
And we don't have a turn on that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'd rather have them, if they're going slower, they're not gonna miss it, they're less likely to miss it.
Right, and if we're worried about cars detouring through PG, the slower we make it, the less, I feel like the less likely they'll use it as a detour.
Yeah,
I mean, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's an area
it's a
where,
rural area, I just think we're,
But that argument would say, make it 50 miles an hour, because that's the standard when it's not posted in a rural
I
area.
also don't want to make an adjustment based on what Far Hills is doing.
right.
I do see a big discrepancy between the two speed limits, but I will not, well, I don't think we should make a decision based off of it, because Far Hills is changing, and we're changing it to accommodate, they're doing it for safety purposes, I would hope.
right, but their 35-mile-an-hour road abuts our road, and so do we want it to change for those half-mile, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Well,
we
I
have
will.
to consider it, we're neighbors.
I completely agree, and it's interesting because we're thinking about them. I don't think when they made the decision, they weren't thinking about us. So, but to your point, I'm in agreement, and we're trying to accommodate all residents, but they didn't accommodate us, and this email was sent out today, if I'm correct. Yes, it was sent out today. So for us to kind of get the word, I'm also in the boat where, well, but at the end of the day, we're doing this for the best interest and health and safety of all our residents. So this is why it's up for discussion.
And my position is I think making the speed limit consistent throughout makes it a safer road for everybody. I haven't liked all those changes in the speed limit for a long time.
Do we know how long it's been 45? For how many years? Has it been 2 decades, 3 decades?
I have no idea.
I can't remember what it was.
Got it. And this is something that I'll talk to Chief personally about, and we can circle back. maybe look at different data, look at different options. I'll also speak to,
Why don't you do this? Why don't you speak to the chief? You share with him the discussions here tonight about the multiple speed changes. See how he feels about going to 35. If he's in concurrence with that,
Sure.
approach the county and see what they say.
Okay.
See how it's received by them. See what their opinion is. It's their role ultimately. And then come back to us and we'll let you know what we do.
Okay.
For whatever your research finds.
You got it.
Okay?
Thanks, Sergio.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sergio. Good report.
Any other new business, anyone? Hearing none, move on. Miscellaneous discussions and approval. Nancy, you want to brief us on the raffle application from Immaculate Conception?
Yes, they're looking to get a raffle license for 50/50 to be held at Natterar on February 1st, 2025. All of the paperwork has been completed. They've paid their charge to us and for what the state is. So if you guys approve it, then we can send that down to the state for their approval.
Council concurrence?
Concur.
Sergio?
Concur, please.
Okay, Nancy, good to go. Reading and approval of minutes, may I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes from November 26, 2024?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please, Nancy.
Councilwoman Murphy,
Yes.
Councilman Silva,
Yes.
Councilwoman Sueda,
Yes.
Council President Sweeney,
Aye.
Councilwoman Waddle.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to ordinances, just for the record, ordinance number 1147, 2024, which is previously introduced. This is regarding land disturbances and lot grading is being tabled and will be reintroduced next year. Moving on to resolutions. I know I want to see 21624 pulled with the council members. Please take a look at all the resolutions except for bill pay at the end and see if there's any additional resolutions you'd like to pull for any of
You're gonna also pull
222. 222 is
222, you're gonna also pull.
Pulling it completely, not for discussion.
Yes, we're pulling it for completely not for discussion. That one will actually be tabled.
Yeah.
We're pulling that one, right?
219.
21924.
That is not for the
I
one
thought the
that's,
same
that's
thing.
a different one, that's
That was
not for the
different
one,
property.
that's a
Okay,
different property.
thanks.
Yep.
We didn't have one for the discussion.
Yeah, I think that could be misconstrued.
Just wanted to make sure.
But eagle eyes.
No, you're the eagle eye over the weekend, we all noticed that.
I'm gonna claim 225.
So pull it?
Yeah.
Okay.
You good otherwise?
Nothing, you're good? Who else is good?
Okay.
Good.
John's good?
Yep.
Julie, you're good?
Likewise.
All right, let's move on. Let's start with 216-24, this is a resolution supporting an amendment of the fair share, of the fair.
You're gonna do the ones that you pulled first for discussion
Yeah.
before you do the
Yeah.
Okay.
216, the resolution supporting an amendment of the Fair Housing Act, FHA, is proposed by the New Jersey Institute of Local Government Attorneys. A motion and second, please.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, discussion. Attorney Warner, would you please make comments on this?
Certainly, thank you, Mayor. As the governing body knows, the Fair Housing Act was recently amended for the fourth round affordable housing obligations for all municipalities throughout the state. The New Jersey Institute of Local Government Attorneys, of which I am a trustee, has proposed a further amendment to that legislation. One of several concerns that the Institute has, as well as most, not all municipalities have, with respect to the amendment, is that it essentially imposed a statewide affordable housing obligation of approximately 85,000 units of affordable housing for the fourth round, which is the 10-year period from July 1, 2025 to June 30, 2035. However, when you look at the 10 years preceding that time frame, there were only approximately 99,000 certificates of occupancy for all types of housing, market rate and affordable, issued statewide. They almost equal each other. However, as we know, there is a presumption that whenever affordable housing is constructed, it's generally 20% or 1/5 of total housing. In other words, most developers, in fact, all developers other than 100% affordable housing developers who get special tax credits, etc., will not develop affordable housing unless there's a roughly 5-to-1 ratio between market rate units, 5 market rate units for every unit of affordable housing constructed. Therefore, it would be reasonable to assume that 85,000 unit affordable obligation for the next 10 years for the state, you would have in that 10-year period roughly 425,000 total units. However, again, when we look back the last 10 years, there are only about 99,000 total units. So it's not realistic. Affordable housing is supposed to be, among other things, based on a realistic opportunity to construct it. So what the New Jersey Institute of Local Government Attorneys has proposed is an amendment which would simply take the amount of certificates of occupancy that were issued over the past 10 years and basically take 20% of that number and have that, instead of the 85,000 unit affordable housing obligation for the state for the next 10 years, have that much lower number be the affordable housing target, the imposition. Because the number wasn't selected for any particular means other than it was selected. So that is essentially the proposed legislation. Many municipalities are supporting it. The Fair Housing Act has consistently defined the prospective need of affordable housing to include a projection of housing needs based on development and growth, which is, quote, reasonably likely to occur in a region or a municipality. That's the language of the Fair Housing Act and has been for 30 years. Excuse me, 40 years. So it is simply trying to make it realistic as it's supposed to be. So that is what the governing body would be supporting, along with many other governing bodies throughout the state, that proposed amendment to the Fair Housing Act, if you should adopt this resolution.
Thank you, Steve.
Further discussion? May I just point out that, so everyone's aware of it, the Affordable Housing Committee, John Sweeney, has been overseeing the round four obligations that we have and the commitment that we have to make by the end of January. There have been regular meetings on that, and Steve is an integral part of that, and his firm is actually what has gone to the DCA and advocated on our behalf. So we are actively on whatever you might read in the papers or whatever. We are actively on top of our round four obligation and seeing that to be an appropriate number. Roll call, please, Nancy.
Councilwoman Murphy?
Yes.
Councilman Silva?
Yes.
Councilwoman Sueda?
Yes.
Council President Sweeney?
Aye.
Councilwoman Weibel?
Aye.
Okay, resolution 225-24, accepting a proposal from Princeton High Group for grant management and engineering services for the Peapack pedestrian bridges. A motion and second, please.
So moved.
Second. Discussion. Judy?
So just so you all are clear, I mean, you've heard me discuss the 2 bridges that the town, the environmental commission, and then trails committees have been hoping to get, one at Rockabye Meadow and one down by the old DPW to kind of continue a trail system throughout. As I think I've mentioned in previous meetings, you know, we've had DEP permits for Rockabye Bridge for like 7 years and this one for less, but based on building specs of, according to the DEP, you know, these fairly elaborate bridges, ADA compliant and so forth, that really are quite large, quite expensive. We've been working with the DEP, hoping to get design that seems more reasonable for a town of our size. We've kind of been struggling with it. It's a little bit out of our pay grade as volunteers and so forth. So we had a meeting with Princeton Hydro, and they are going to, for a fee, help us with grant management, so to get monies for these bridge, as well as some engineering services to kind of dial back the design as much as possible, knowing that these are going to be pedestrian bridges and knowing that they're going to get fairly limited amount of hikers and walkers and pedestrians across them. So we're hopeful that, I mean, we have the permits for both bridges, and we're just hopeful that we can scale back and move forward. So we think it's worth the money. And it's in the EC budget, just so you know.
I thought at one point we discussed that the Rockabye, that one was not going to go forward.
So, you know, initially we were only doing Rockabye. And then we decided if we pair them up, we're more likely to get grant money because it's a more complete system. And then honestly, I think we made that decision like 3 years ago, and then we've kind of hemmed and hawed, which is the more important bridge. Should we just focus? So we're still hoping to get both. That's the ideal, because again, I do think grant-wise, that's going to be the most appealing to get a trail system that goes from one end of town to the other.
Yeah.
So we'll see what this tells us with this new information. But you know, I think both bridges are ideal.
It makes Rockabye a much better walk.
It is, because right now Rockabye's in two separate places, right? You know, you either walk on one side or you walk on the other.
Turn around.
Right. So, you know, I think both bridges have their positives. So, any questions?
Roll call vote, please, Nancy.
Councilwoman Murphy?
Yes.
Councilman Silva?
Yes.
Councilwoman Sueda?
Yes.
Council President Sweeney?
Aye.
Councilwoman Weigel?
Aye.
Okay. Now I'm gonna ask for a motion and a second for a consent agenda for the following resolutions: 214 through 215, then 217 through 221, and then 223 through 224, and 226 through 229.
So,
Second.
Roll call vote, please, Nancy.
Councilwoman Murphy?
yes.
Councilman Silva?
Quick question, did we pull 222?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll mention that.
24, okay.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
And that was my apologies, Matt.
No.
Councilwoman Sueda? Yes. Council President Sweeney?
Aye.
Councilwoman Weigel?
Aye.
Let the record show that a resolution 222-24 was full completed. Let's move on to bills list. Does any council member have any item on the bills list that needs to be pulled for discussion? None? Seeing none, Nancy, would you please read the total amount of bills to be paid?
$1,377,114.26.
May I have a motion and a second to approve the resolution for the payment of bills?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Councilwoman Murphy?
Yes.
Councilman Silva?
Yes.
Councilwoman Sueda? Yes. Council President Sweeney?
Aye.
Councilwoman Weigel? Aye.
Okay, those are to be paid. Let's move on to council reports. To the respective committees of the council, does any committee chairman have a report for this evening?
Can I just want to let everybody know that we received the last payment of $62,426.70 from our 101,000 Liberty Park Green Acres grant that we received for that. We received the final payment last week.
That's great news. Good. Thank you. Any other council member have a committee report to share with us? So I have two items. The first one I kind of covered already in Q&A at the beginning, and that was regarding the drones and an update on the drones. And myself, along with the other 5 mayors of the Summit Hills, are actually very proactive on this. We speak probably every other day on it, or correspond every other day on it. So we're keeping our eye on that, and I wish I had more answers on this. The second thing is I wanted to share with you an incident that occurred here, I'm sure you'll see it in the paper if you haven't seen it already, and that there was a fire in this building on Saturday. We had contractors working here on the library. There was saw cutting through the roof, caused some insulation on fire on the roof. It was fortunately extinguished by very capable firefighters from 3 departments in a short amount of time. It did create some water damage. Quite a number of department heads and council members were down here on Saturday and Sunday, as well as our valued employees, department heads. Some of them were here as well. Nancy had a restoration company through our insurance company in here late Saturday. They got the place sealed up overnight. They came back Sunday, properly sealed it. We are very concerned about this. It is overall very minor damage, but we are more importantly overall concerned about delaying the completion of the library renovation. So we are now waiting for a report through the insurance company, and we'll have a meeting with the contractor to see how we can work out what happened and how we'll proceed going forward as expeditiously as possible under our terms. So those are my 2 items. Steve, you have anything else?
Nothing. Mayor, thank you.
I have only 2 items on executive summary, Nancy, though, just a reminder, the tree ordinance discussion goes on the first grade limit in January, and Sergio, you're on top of the speed limit on Main Street.
Am I able to contact that resident personally?
Oh, I wish you would.
Okay.
I wish you would. He called me yesterday, the resident called me yesterday to meet with me on Monday, because he wants answers. And I was going to tell you about it.
Okay.
Yes, please handle them.
Okay.
I'll be with you in September.
You got it.
Because you know the details even better than I, far better than I. Got it. Opening the meeting to public comment on agenda items, please. At the microphone, the address.
Carol Lane, 100 Lane, Gladstone. Just as a follow-up on the speed issue, which I remember discussing in this room when Valerie Pulaski was concerned about the 25 mile an hour in her area. New signage was erected in her home with just the speed drawing attention to it, if I remember correctly. We talked about the fact that it went from 45, 35 to 25. But in this case, since it's one resident who has concerns, are there things you can do with those large mirrors that help him have visibility either in one direction or another, which would allow everything else to remain as is in terms of speed limits? Since your report finds people are not exceeding the speed established for that area, I'm just wondering if there is an alternative which would be much easier to implement and not necessarily punish everyone else, but it might be easier to implement.
Thank you very much.
Hello again, Lynn Perry, 59 Main Street, Peapack, and the aforementioned Valerie's neighbor. So I know exactly what Valerie's concern is. I happen to live, the cross street is Railroad Avenue, so I live directly next to Railroad Avenue, and just on the other side of it, I'm sorry, I'm bad with north-south. So if you're headed towards Natterar, the 35 speed limit sign is just after you cross Railroad Avenue. And that area is where I see most of the people speeding. I don't know if it's folks coming off of Holland, making the right off of Holland, and coming onto Main Street and not knowing that it's only 25 through there and anticipating the 35 mile an hour zone. They do speed, and they do speed the other direction as well. They do not slow down when it comes to 25 miles an hour. They're very easily doing 40 miles an hour through there. You go somewhere 22, Valerie was involved in an accident coming out of her driveway. I was not home. But the person who hit Valerie then subsequently went through the fence on my property because they were going 40 miles an hour. So I don't know if there's anything we can do about that section. I am familiar with where the speed study was done. I do appreciate that speed study. I drive that literally every morning on my way to work. I like to drive fast too. So I do try to keep it at like 49. But I don't know if there's something else that could be done about the section where I live. Because it is, like I said, I don't know if it's the people coming off of Holland and not realizing it's only 25 there and not seeing the sign coming the other direction that says it goes from 35 to 25.
So to be clear, the discussion on the agenda tonight was regarding this section of road, actually, that's your topic. I'm happy to talk about your ordinance.
That'd be great.
Okay. When Ms. Pulaski first brought this to us, our police department did run a speed monitoring survey on that section of road and found that its speeding was not excessive, although they did implement additional enforcement measures on that section of road, right where you live. So it's not believed at this point that there is a major speeding problem on that section of road, very similar to what they found up by this section of road. Nonetheless, we know we have people, likely mostly non-residents, cutting them down, speeding, and the police do send out additional call in the morning, hoping to keep that in check.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Good end of the year coming up here as well. Andy Fitzmayer, Concord Street. Just a thought as well as the speed. That section in between Old Dutch Road and where the Park Rangers house is, that is technically Bedminster
Yes,
Township.
it is.
That's right.
Just so to clarify. Also, anytime that you use a GPS system from around Holland Road into Far Hills, GPS is sending you up Old Dutch Road to get onto 206. There's now a hotel and restaurant, and every single person that's not from our area and doesn't know where they're going, they use GPS to get on the highway or going towards Bedminster. Maybe someone wants to look into if there's ability to change it, because eventually there will be some type of car accident on 206. And I'm only saying this to this town because they're coming from Peapack into Bedminster. Just thought.
That's a horrible turn from that.
It's a horrible turn, yeah.
That's a horrible.
At 3 in the morning. it's
And
fine.
my phone always tells me to go that
Pretty
way.
easy to,
At 3 in the morning, it's
in the
okay.
middle of the
Yeah.
night, but any other time, I mean, you have a lot of
Left
cars.
and right is horrible.
Yeah, you have a lot of cars going up that road now.
Yeah.
From-
I believe they addressed that issue at one of their town meetings, because the mayor said something about it.
I thought I saw something, but
Yeah,
I don't believe it was
and they
for
were looking
that.
into some countermeasures or something regarding Old Dutch.
You might have to put in speed berms or something.
Maybe.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if there's a way to change GPS into.
We're struggling with drones.
That's what they're meant, just for Old Dutch Road.
We're fighting another.
We're losing the technical war.
Okay. Thank you all for that. Any council members have any further business? Seeing none, I have a motion and second to adjourn, please.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, meeting is adjourned. Our next meeting is on Tuesday, January 2nd at 7
No,
o'clock.
Thursday.
It says Tuesday, I'm sorry. I'm reading.
Thursday.
Thursday,
Thursday.
January 2nd. January 2nd at 7 o'clock p.m. as a reorganization meeting. I would like to thank the three of you very much for being with us tonight. It is a busy season out there, and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Happy holidays.